Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first things we're going to talk about today is we had two stories based around human sexuality that were trending today. Pride Month is in June, it's coming up, and in advance, Disney released their rainbow Mickey ears. And of course, you have some people that are very happy about this, Disney making an official move for inclusion, for representation. But at the same time, you also have people criticizing the move, but not for what I originally thought they would be criticizing the move for. There are people calling out Disney saying this is just a surface level business move. It's pink capitalism. They're offering a product for a marginalized group, not because inclusion, not because of anything else other than money. People pointing out that the organization GLAAD has given Disney a failing rating, saying Walt Disney Studios has the weakest historical record when it comes to LGBTQ inclusive films of all the major studios. And I will say personally, as someone from the outside looking in, I understand why you could have those criticisms, definitely. While I personally see this as just a business move on the part of Disney, they are trying to bring in more dollars, it is also very telling of the times. If the understanding is that this is pink capitalism, that it is a business move, you also have to take into account that Disney has people going to their parks that will most likely also have a problem with those ears. So I'll say, don't give Disney the trophy for ally of the century. If progress is what you're seeking, this is in part that. That's just my personal takeaway. Now, the other bit of human sexuality news we had today was thanks to Janelle Monáe in the news. She's a musician, an actress. There's often been debate and speculation in regards to her sexuality. She was recently doing a Rolling Stone interview where she came out as pansexual. And for those unfamiliar, the most simplified version of what that is, according to GLAAD, being pansexual means being attracted to all gender identities or attracted to people regardless of gender. Or as Janelle Monáe described it, I'm a free-ass motherfucker. Also going on to say, I want young girls, young boys, non-binary, gay, straight, queer people who are having a hard time dealing with their sexuality, dealing with feeling ostracized or bullied for just being their unique selves to know that I see you. And my reaction to this is, cool, I liked you in Moonlight and Hidden Figures. I respect her talking about this because obviously there are younger people that can now see her as, oh, okay, I'm okay being me. And while I don't personally subscribe to the idea that there are an infinite number of gender identities, as long as someone is just, they're being whatever they feel like their true self is, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, I don't care. You love who you want to love, as long as it's not like exploitive and abusive by nature, like people trying to go after children or doing stuff with animals. That's just my personal takeaway. I will say I do have a sense of frustration that I even have to point out the non-abusive, non-animal thing, because there are people that try to equate those two horrendous acts with just one consenting adult trying to love another consenting adult. You be you, love who you want to love, do or don't do whatever you want in your own bedroom or wherever else, as long as, once again, it is not abusive. Great. But that's just my personal reaction to this. Then, in massive news, at his sexual assault retrial, Bill Cosby was found guilty. Guilty on all 3 counts of indecent assault, and for each of those charges, he faces up to 10 years. And with him being 80 years old, if he is actually punished for this would be a life sentence. Also, according to reports just after the verdict, when District Attorney Kevin Steele was saying that Bill Cosby should be jailed immediately, Bill Cosby reportedly called him an asshole. But luckily for Cosby, the judge ruled that he can remain free on bail until his sentencing. And I say, let this be a lesson to the famous, the people who feel they are untouchable. You may feel like you can drug and sexually assault women, but know that one day, several decades from when you first did it, allegedly, that one of the 59 women who spoke out against you, they may get a trial and hold you accountable for some of it. And granted, you may not initially be convicted because there are a few people that are a fan of who you were on your TV show, but eventually, maybe, boom, held accountable. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, of course, fantastic ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets for live events that range from concerts, comedy shows, sporting events. They put all the tickets in one place. They give them 0 to 100 scores so you know if you're getting a good deal or not. I have the app on my phone. It is by far the easiest way to get tickets, whether it be a last second sort of thing or something I'm looking forward to. So if you want to check it out like many from the nation already have, go to SeatGeekPhil.com, download the app, and when you find tickets that you want, remember to enter code PHIL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. And the first bit of awesome is actually a tease for tomorrow. This, of course, is my first week back, and in addition to doing the show and creating more of the new shows behind the scenes, we've been just slammed with meetings. Some, how do I say it without saying it? With parties that we've been having issues with that we're trying to move forward with, as well as those to create the new content. So instead of me doing the Friday show, which of course I shoot this afternoon usually, at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, if you don't know what time that is in your time zone, use Google. I'll be doing another no holds bar, ask me anything that can relate to stories that we could have talked about this week that I have the information on, just don't have the time to film, as well as personal, business, whatever questions, right here on this channel. I'm gonna schedule it tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Then, in other self-serving awesome, PewDiePie, aka Felix, aka the guy that Jax Films always rips off, he confused a good number of the nation today when he posted this thumbnail for a video where he talked about YouTube stories, which is actually, I mean, I will say this kind of just not as a joke, it's actually a good show. It both makes fun of the idea of talking about these people being a news show, and also then is effectively that. And also, I had a few people messaging me that are like, Phil, are you angry? You're gonna do something about it? No, I'm not. What? To those few, I say, guys, it's a joke. It's funny. Same as when Jax Films fucked with me. It's funny. It's the internet. I know there's a lot of serious stuff going on, but you have to be able to just like joke around and mess with people. Also, thank you, PewDiePie, because now I'm going to put you in the tags and thumbnail. I appreciate the extra 100,000 views your face brings. Then we got the news that George R.R. Martin is releasing his new book. Not only that, but it's going to be released in November, but it is reportedly not the sixth book, The Winds of Winter. Instead, it's called Fire and Blood, and it reportedly takes place centuries before Game of Thrones. And as far as The Winds of Winter release, he said, quote, no, winter is not coming. Not in 2018, at least. So yeah, but yeah. Then we had Life Noggin covering Could You Live in a Bubble? Yes, technically it's a stupid question because Jake Gyllenhaal proved many years ago you can, but Life Noggin still does a pretty good job. Then we got an Honest Game trailer for Welcome to the Game 2. We also had the cast of Avengers Infinity War singing The Marvel Bunch. We had Alton Brown on Hot Ones. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. Then in massive news, yesterday authorities announced that the Golden State Killer was finally arrested. Now if you're not familiar with this case, it wouldn't be shocking. This is something that happened back in the 70s and 80s. Now if you're unfamiliar, the Golden State Killer is said to have committed at least 100 acts of burglary, 50 acts of rape, and over a dozen murders. The suspect's victims varied between the ages of 13 to 41. The last known victim was 18-year-old Janelle Cruz, who was raped and bludgeoned to death in Irvine in 1986. And the news came in yesterday that after 40 years, police announced they've got the guy. They arrested a 72-year-old white man in a suburb of Sacramento. He has been charged with multiple counts of murder in connection to this 40-year-old case. And first off, one of the main reasons this case was so hard to solve was because for decades, police believed that these attacks were three separate crime sprees. The first spree was a series of home invasions and burglaries in the mid-1970s in Visalia, California. People started calling this unknown assailant the Visalia Ransacker. Then, starting in 1976, there were a streak of home invasions and rapes that plagued Northern California. The suspect was reportedly committing lengthy attacks that sometimes involved sexually assaulting women in front of their loved ones. These attacks became known as the work of the East Area Rapist, or the original Night Stalker. And lastly, someone started to kill couples in Southern California, and people called this the work of the Golden State Killer. Another reason it took so long is it wasn't until 2001 that police started connecting crimes using DNA. And finally, one of the reasons this could have taken so long, and it was actually an FBI theory for a while. They believe the killer and rapist actually had a law enforcement background, and yesterday they confirmed that with the arrest of this suspect who did have that background. The man reportedly served as a police officer in 2 different police departments between 1973 to 1979.
That he is an ex-officer, a police officer in 2 different agencies. One in the Exeter Police Department, which is down in Visalia from approximately 1973 to 1976. That was roughly during the time as the Visalia Ransacker cases were occurring. I can then say that he applied for and got a job with the Auburn Police Department and was employed there from roughly 1976 to 1979 until he was fired.
And as far as why he was eventually fired from the force in the summer of 1979, it was reportedly because he shoplifted a hammer and dog repellent from a store. Also in connection to this story, people have been praising a 2016 book written by Michelle McNamara. Her book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, was an in-depth investigation that tried to uncover the killer's identity. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller, went into terrifying detail on some of the attacks. It was also an interesting and notable book because McNamara actually died before she could finish it, and in fact, her work ended up being completed by a journalist and researcher that was recruited by her husband, comedian Patton Oswalt. And on the note of did this book help police, the response was kind of yes and no.
Did the new book, All Be Gone in the Dark, generate any new leads in the case or help the arrest?
I'm glad you asked that question because that's a question we've gotten from literally all over the world in the last 24 hours, and the answer is no. Other than the fact that it, as was indicated, the media kept this in the public eye and kept public interest. It kept interest and tips coming in. Other than that, there was no information extracted from that book that directly led to the apprehension.
So seemingly it did help because it kept the public interested in this, which of course applies pressure, but as far as facts and the research, the police say that it did not help. Now, all of that said, it will be interesting to see what other information comes out of this story. Questions like, why did he stop? Did anyone else know? I mean, this guy was just hiding in plain sight. He was arrested just 30 minutes from where he committed some of the crimes. And so hopefully we learn more soon. Then let's talk about the Trump nominations and confirmations today. First up, the Senate confirmed Mike Pompeo to be the next Secretary Secretary of State. He, of course, replacing Rex Tillerson, and it's a big deal because he will be in one of the most notable roles considering all the negotiations that are taking place right now. Then we have updates on Ronny Jackson. We talked about him yesterday. He's Trump's nominee to be the next Secretary of Veterans Affairs. There were a lot of accusations made against him, and then as show was going up yesterday, a lot more dropped. And the new document that emerged came from Senate Democrats, and it definitely gave more credence to the allegations that were already out there. And that document was said to be a summary of conversations with 23 colleagues and former colleagues of Jackson. Colleagues saying Jackson showed a pattern of handing out Ambien and Provigil without knowledge of that patient's history. Also saying at one point Jackson dispensed such a large supply of Percocet that it threw the White House medical unit into a panic. In addition to the accusation that was out there yesterday that Dr. Jackson at one point was needed but was too drunk, passed out in a hotel room. There were also claims that at a Secret Service going away party, Jackson got drunk and wrecked a government vehicle. We also mentioned that for a brief second yesterday, but then the big update today. After all of this, Jackson has now issued a statement withdrawing his nomination, saying, "Going into this process, I expected tough questions about how to best care for our veterans, but I did not expect to have to dignify baseless and anonymous attacks on my character and integrity. The allegations against me are completely false and fabricated. If they had any merit, I would not have been selected, promoted, and entrusted to serve in such a sensitive and important role as physician to 3 presidents over the past 12 years. Unfortunately, because of how Washington works, these false allegations have become a distraction for this president and the important issue we must be addressing, how we give the best care to our nation's heroes. While I will forever be grateful for the trust and confidence President Trump has placed in me by giving me this opportunity, I am regretfully withdrawing my nomination to be Secretary for the Department of Veterans Affairs." We also saw Senator Jon Tester, the top Democrat of the Senate VA Committee, issuing a statement thanking service members who spoke out and saying, "The next secretary must have a commitment to reform a strained healthcare system and a willingness to stand up to special interests who want to privatize the VA." And that actually brings us to the next story, which was Donald Trump on Fox and Friends this morning. Among the many things he talked about Ronny Jackson, talking about the accusations themselves.
These are all false accusations that were made. These are false. They're trying to destroy a man. By the way, I did say welcome to Washington, welcome to the swamp, welcome to the world of politics.
Sure.
But for Jon Tester to start bringing up stuff like Candyman and the kind of things he was saying, and then say, well, these are just statements that are made.
Right.
There's no proof of this. And he has a perfect record. He's got this beautiful record, unblemished.
He also commented on Jon Tester potentially paying a price.
For him to be doing this to this man and this family, I think Jon Tester has to have a big price to pay in Montana, because I don't think people in Montana, the admiral is the kind of person that they respect and admire, and they don't like seeing what's happened to him.
And Trump does have a point there. Tester has an election coming up in 2018. He's a senator. His last election was back in 2012. And there, before we entered the age of Trump, he only won with 48.6% of the vote. He won by just less than 2% thanks to a third party. And obviously there are a lot of interesting elections happening right now, but it will be very interesting to see what does actually happen to Tester. I mean, there are a lot of places we've seen the Dems definitely gaining ground. Even in a Democratic loss recently, there was a big shift. The Democrat in Arizona ended up losing by 5 points, but that was a massive shift from the election. In the presidential election, that specific district had voted for Trump by 21 points. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're going to see that shift everywhere in this country. Also, despite BuzzFeed having their top story of the day at that moment being that Donald Trump did not buy Melania Trump a present, oh, the horror, apparently. There were also other things of note in that interview. Trump took aim at James Comey, who was part of a town hall with Anderson Cooper last night.
Look, Comey is a leaker and he's a liar. And not only on this stuff, he's been leaking for years. He's probably been using his friend, the so-called professor, who now turns out to have FBI clearance, which he never said. He even lied about that because he never said that in Congress.
And that is an important note. There's been a lot of confusion about who Comey gave the memo to. A lot of people being like, oh, it's just like his pal. Just so we're all clear, it's a person that has an FBI badge and security clearance. Then Trump continues saying that things were classified.
He leaked classified information in order to try and get a special counsel.
He says it wasn't classified, Mr. President. He says it wasn't classified.
Oh, it's totally classified. And he also leaked the memos, which are classified. Nobody unclassified them. And those memos were about me, and they're phony memos. He didn't write those memos accurately. He put a lot of phony stuff.
So he's saying that both it was classified memos, classified information, but then also fake information. Then Trump took aim at his own Justice Department, which even the Fox and Friends host kind of interjects there.
He is guilty of crimes. And if we had a Justice Department that was doing their job, instead of spending
It's your
$10
Justice
billion
Department, Mr. President, you're the Republican
You're right.
in charge.
You're
You've got
right.
a Republican
But
running it.
Then Trump talked about Michael Cohen, his lawyer, who actually, if you haven't seen the news yet, has made the decision to plead the fifth. Here he refers to Cohen as one of many lawyers, saying that he only had a tiny fraction of the work, and then going into more specifics.
He represents me like with this crazy Stormy Daniels deal. He represented me, and from what I see, he did absolutely nothing wrong. There were no campaign funds going into this.
Then why is he pleading
which
the
would have been a
fifth?
problem. Because he's got other things. He's got businesses, and from what I understand, they're looking at his businesses. And I hope he's in great shape.
And part of that is something we've seen in the past, the minimization, what I personally refer to it as, is the coffee boyification. That in reference to former Trump advisor George Papadopoulos, who was referred to as a coffee boy. But here in regards to Cohen, it's an interesting note because it's minimizing, but then also an admission. Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, commented on the interview saying, "This case gets better every day, every hour, and one of the reasons why it gets better is that they step into every trap that we lay. The president's statements this morning are very, very damaging to him in our case. It directly contradicts what he said on Air Force One relating to his knowledge or lack thereof of the agreement of $130,000.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
It also appears to go against what Michael Cohen has said in the past, that the $130,000 deal, that was a private transaction between just he and Stormy Daniels. We also then had Avenatti continuing, "It is going to add considerable momentum to our efforts to depose the president and place him under oath. Because now we have two contrary statements made within the same month relating to what he knew about the agreement, what he didn't know, what his relationship was with Michael Cohen, and we're going to utilize that statement today to argue for his deposition." And in fact, today we're seeing prosecutors using Trump's own words this morning against him. Lawyers citing Trump's comment that Cohen only handled a, quote, tiny little fraction of legal work, so it adds to their argument that out of all the files they got in the Cohen raid, the documents are unlikely to contain voluminous privileged documents, and so they're asking for a quick review. So there's that. There's also a lot more to the interview. There's a good chunk where he's talking about the 2016 election. I'll link to it down below so you can see all the parts we covered and didn't cover. And that's where I'm going to end that story in today's show. And of course, remember, this is the Philip DeFranco Show. I give you the news, sometimes my opinion, and then I want to hear from you. What do you think about this last story, the first one, anything in between? Let me know in those comments down below. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I'm trying to do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell to turn notifications on. Also, if you missed yesterday's Philip DeFranco Show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want some lighter behind the scenes stuff, click or tap right there to watch the newest vlog. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow in a live stream.